I'm Tamika D. Mallory.
And it's your boy Mysonne, the General.
We are your host of TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
New name, new energy, but
same old us.
What's up, Mysonne? How you doing today?
I'm blessed and highly favored.
It's hot. It's hot across the whole country.
Heat. They got a heat wave.
But it's been before they said it was a heat wave.
But it was a heat wave.
I mean, I'm telling you, man, I have been traveling from state to state, and it is extremely hot. Extremely hot.
Yeah, the heat
out
is
of the
outside.
country, the sun is peeling your skin. In the country,
the heat is on hell. They call it the heat is on hell.
It's hot. It's hot for sure. And hopefully folks who are out there are taking care of themselves and staying hydrated. You know, I've made this commitment to drinking lots more water in a day. And I see a difference. I feel different. Yeah, certainly, since I've been drinking water.
Hydration is
but
key.
Hopefully, wherever you are, folks who are listening in, that you're taking care of yourself, eating your fruits and vegetables, drinking your water, and staying in cool places. And, you know, I was watching the other day, a young couple had a baby out, and the baby was in the stroller, and they were pushing the baby, and the sun was beaming down. And it was a brand new baby, maybe 2 months. And I was thinking to myself, wow, I wish that we weren't living in a time where, as a woman by myself, I can't say, because if you had been there, or anybody else, even another female, I'd have been like, sweetheart, you know, please put something over that baby. But me by myself and this couple, who knows, they might go crazy on me and start trying to fight me. So I'm like, I don't want to be, you know, intrusive. But what I did do is I kept looking. And as I continued to look and look and look for a few moments, it was like, oh, you know, they realized, or she did. Because she was looking at me kind of like, why, you know, maybe it's cute baby, but I was looking out of concern. And mothers kind of know. It's like if you out with your kid and your kid is like being bad and you see another mother just looking with that look, you be like, oh, let me get your ass over here and sit down, you know.
Let me show you that I control this.
So she covered the baby. And I want to say that babies can't tell you they're cold. They can't tell you they're hot. They can't say anything. So we have to be overly mindful in these conditions.
Well, they cry when they
Not always. Not always. Not always. I argue with my granddaughter's parents all the time about needing a sweater. They don't, it's a different thing. They like, you bugging, because I'm extra. So, you know, I come from the generation that you would have a snowsuit on in the 50-degree weather. Janice is laughing. That's the generation I came from. You would have a snowsuit on in the 50-degree weather because they would be saying it's too cold. You're going to wear a scarf. You damn sure going to have a hat on your head until it's about 60 degrees. No doubt. That's how I was raised. So when I see them, they just be hanging about and just chilling. But my granddaughter is so, she's busy and doing, she ain't got time to be cold. Nonetheless, I'm always saying that. So I'm just saying, as a point of reference, as we each one teach one, please, during this time, make sure that you are being extra mindful of the babies. Like I see people putting like little, not ice, but you know, they'll wrap up something cold and put it on the baby's neck so that they don't get dehydrated. Because people be in the hospital with their babies screaming all night long, and a part of it is, you know, milk sitting out too long in the heat. It's so many things. That's why you just shouldn't be having kids when you're young, because the job is hard.
But that's what you're supposed to actually.
No, not when you're 19 and 20 years old.
Most
you need to be
people
about 25.
But think about it, 25. But
and that's early. 30, really.
Well, I hear you. I guess.
I know the body.
We have a conversation with fertility and all these things, so maybe we should ask that.
No, the body. Your best physical time to have children, I think, is even before you 18 years old.
Exactly.
Like your body.
Because
I'm talking about your mentality.
I get it.
It is a lot of stuff to do. Like now that I see my granddaughter and her parents, That's a whole new shit. I'm telling we talk about this all the time. Looking at how Nasan is so involved with, how he deals with his son and them as great parents for Kasan. This is a new generation. When we was younger, at 24, 25 years old, I don't know what was happening. If it wasn't for my parents, I just don't know.
I was in jail, so I couldn't have been.
So
it's definitely
it gets
different.
back to the point of why at 20 years old, we do not need to be having children. Now, you get to be about 25, 26, you can do it, but it's still very, very, very hard. The opportune time, even though it's not physically the right time, is about 30. But then that's when you deepen your career. I don't know. Well, anyway, we getting ready to talk about, like you said, fertility and all of that and some other issues later on. So let me tell you my thought of the day. We've been supporting Congressman Jamal Bowman. Hopefully, at the point that you all see this interview, he has won his primary as the congressman, the continued congressman of District 16 in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. And this is not really so much about Congressman Bowman, but one of the greatest challenges that we faced as we stood with this brother and will continue to in all of his endeavors is this idea that there are people who really believe in their hearts and mind that Latimer, which is the man who ran against him, a 70 plus, I think he's 71, but he's 70 plus year old white man who was the county executive in Westchester. So there are people who know him, pastors and other things that he's done in the community. People know him, right? They thought that he was better than Jamal to be a congressman. Now, I'm not even here to talk about the difference because, again, hopefully at this point, we've beat him and that's the end of the story. But it's possible that at this point next week, we haven't beat him. So I don't know that thing. But here's something I do know about how we as humans, and I say we because all of us have some part of this hypocritical nature. We are hypocritical and conflicted beings just in our makeup because we could sit here and say we don't want to see, violence in our community and then watch all the BMF and power possible and love it. We could say we don't like sexual promiscuity and then be outside talking about get it sexy. So this is just the nature of humans. Like it's, and I don't even know, maybe the word hypocritical feels hard. So I would say we're conflicted individuals. But here's what scares me. Some of the same people who supported Latimer, the 71-year-old white man, are the same folks who are anti-Trump, the same people who are saying we need a Congress in place that will block the Republicans, God forbid Trump becomes president, that won't work across the aisle too much to our detriment with people like the Marjorie Taylor Greens who are completely crazy and will always compromise everything that we're trying to get done that has to do with our well-being, right? Mm-hmm. They would say we don't need to have these older people going into Congress at this point in their lives because we need to have younger, fresh people. Like we saw what happened with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Same people. She was older. She probably should have retired while Obama was president, which meant that he would have been able to appoint someone in her position on the Supreme Court and we would not have lost that seat, right? These are the same people who have this logic. They don't want Trump. They don't want people who are in Congress that are sort of aging out, which that makes them vulnerable for people to run against them. I mean, they don't want people who will do too much compromise and that look like they're too much in the middle of the aisle. They want them to be strong on our issues. This is what they say out their mouths. And then they decide that it is better to send someone who is in the retirement age of his life, right, to Congress over a younger man, a younger black man who is an educator, by the way, that they could get into Congress, and he has at least 25 to 30 years of still being young, still being on the issues. He's already showing that he is a very progressive and has a liberal mindset, and is exactly what you need when you got a Marjorie Taylor Greene MAGA mentality in Congress. You need a squad mentality also to help combat that. Now, I'm not saying if you had a situation where these people were just running at the same time, right? They just new people running for office, and you decide, we know the county executive, we respect him, we respect some of the things that he's done. We're going to look at him because we know him better than we know Congressman Jamal Bowman. Jamal Bowman is the incumbent. He is the current congressman. So you saying you would rather send him home, a young man, a young black man who has years and years and years before him that he can be there to make good in Congress, so you could put a 71-year-old white man who is taking money from the very people you say you don't want. The same people funding Trump. The same people who are funding a genocide, or at least fighting like hell to ensure that the people of Palestine are wiped out. They okay with that as far as I can see. That's how I feel, right? These people are giving him money. The same GOP donors that are funding Trump and funding the campaigns against, how the hell you out here marching, speaking against the discontinuance or the destruction of DEI, and then you want to support a candidate that's taking money from the people who are funding the campaign against DEI. It's not making sense to me.
None of it makes sense. And we always vote against our best interests, right? And that's one of the major things that I've been saying lately. That how did they trick us into believing that people, and the very people that we say we against, are better for us? Like this shit is like you just said. It's really mind blowing to me. Like every time I look at these situations, and we vote against our ultimate best interests.
Well, no, we don't vote against our best interests. You see, this is the problem. We most of the time don't vote at all. Not all of us. I'm not saying that. Not all of us. Nope. I'm not. I want to make it very clear. This is the issue. Because I don't want there to be a gray area. The issue is too many of us don't vote at all at these times when we need to be. But it is an interest. It's our personal interest.
Yeah, but
that's the problem.
Yeah, that's personal.
It's not that it's not our interest.
Our best interest. Our collective.
Exactly.
And that's what it is. And if you're talking about the collective, if we talking about what's going on in our communities of color, where we are experiencing the brunt of all of the legislation passed, the fucking judges that they putting into, like, we're experiencing it firsthand. If we are voting against the things that are going to change those, against the people who are intentional about saying, nah, I'm gonna make sure these communities have the proper schooling, they have the funding for the programs needed in the communities, I'm gonna make sure that the elderly are good, I'm gonna make sure that health insurance is good in these communities. If we're voting against those people because somebody's gonna give my program a couple of dollars, right? Somebody's gonna fund my personal thing a couple of dollars. Somebody's gonna make sure that my business keeps running, or the corporation that I have run. Then we are fighting a losing battle, and that's what's happening. And that's when you look at these organizations that are funding the people running against Jamal Bowman. They are focusing on a personal interest of the people that they're attaching themselves to.
Absolutely.
They're like, okay, you want some funding for this? Okay, we're going to make sure y'all get this.
You know, and I think that there are some people who really have rationalized this. Like, they really believe that they're doing the right thing somehow because of whatever. And I really, it made me go even harder. Because I'm like, I know that there's no common sense to this right here, right? Mm-hmm. And as pissed off as I have been with Hakeem Jeffries, who I love dearly as a brother, but I am so upset with how he has just like, it's like Israel just completely owns him, right? Just hurt my heart to see this. even he endorsed Jamal Bowman. It don't make sense to me. An incumbent. You don't, incumbents are incumbents for a reason. And let me tell you, to speak to your point about, or to speak to the point about the middle of the line, like how you get these older, especially Democrats in there, and they're more like, want to try to work with everybody and all of that. The man said it to Jamal when he damn near called him an angry black man. He said, you can't just stand around yelling at people on the stage. You got to figure out how to work with them. The only times I've ever seen Jamal Bowman yelling at people was when some shit was going down that you need to be yelling. It was that crazy.
They don't want the energy. The reality of the situation is, as we get older, we just get more set in our ways. We less want conflict, right? We like the lion that's going to pass. It's just the reality. Some of us are. You have some elders who still have that fight in them, but then some are just beat up, right? Some just say, you know what? I want to figure out how to work with you, even though I realize that the compromise is not in the best interest of us all the way, right? And then you have young lions like Jamal Bowman. It's like, nah, certain things aren't compromised.
Somebody got to be a stop, a
it
plug.
It got to be somebody that's like, no, this shit is a full stop.
Yeah, it's got to be.
And that's what we need in leadership. Like, that's what leadership is supposed to look like for us. And, unfortunately, there are so many people who don't want conflict. They want to say, you got to be able to do it this way. They want the least, they want the least amount of resistance. And that's where we are. And unfortunately, we set on two sides, especially in our political parties, is that there are, like you say, the moderates, and then those they want to call radical. But I don't think asking for people to stop killing innocent human beings is radical. I don't think saying, hey, don't send money that taxpayers from America, are paying to fund killing innocent people and not fund the school systems and not fund our own health. Don't tell us you don't have insurance for elderly that they're dying at higher rates, but you have money to continue to send to fund wars. I don't think anything is radical.
That's not radical. And in fact, one of the critiques that I've seen online from people against Jamal Bowman is, well, he voted for this or he voted against this and that. Yeah, sometimes he's actually been one of those people that knows how to compromise. He's not. He's an actual a smart elected official and a smart man. So just stop it.
Shout out to Jamal Bowman. We love you, man. And that brings me to my music spotlight. Today I found this young artist in the song Touch Me. His name is C5. C5. He's a young artist, and he's from Oakland. And it was a song called Letter to My Son. He had a son in his arms. And it was, since it's, in the spirit of Father's Day, we just passed Father's Day, I just wanted to give him a shout out. A lot of his music is very touching. It has a message. He's one of those artists who's building his following organically and is based off just good music, man. So shout out to C5.
C5, Letter to My Son.
Keep doing what you do. Letter to My Son is dope.
All right, well, let's get into our guest. Good conversation, lots to learn. Check it out. Our friends have joined us again. First of all, our sister Keisha.
How y'all doing?
And Coach Gessie has been with us a number of times. And so it's really good to have y'all on our show because y'all been doing everybody else's show to talk about what has recently what recently took place as a family that I think is incredible, beautiful, amazing. And I see Lakisha.
That's okay. You can call me Keisha. That's fine.
How it has already just, helped you to walk into your advocacy, which I knew was going to happen for you at some point. And it's beautiful to watch that now. So first of all, let me just introduce you all properly. Lakisha Randolph is now she is the leader of the Black Fertility Matters community. Okay, yeah. Let's get that straight. So I feel an organization on the way, something big, buildings, and a lot of things. I can see it in the future. And Keisha has had to have IVF, has also now a donor. You have received eggs. So I know Coach Gessie's going to get all of this language cleared up
Listen,
when she
it's
jumps
okay. We
into the
all learning.
conversation.
We're all
Yeah,
learning
I'm
the
learning.
lingo,
I'm
the
learning.
lingo, the
And
language, everything.
all the things. And then Coach Gessie, health activist and founder of the Detox Now, but she's also our big sister that keeps us healthy, keeps us mentally stable. And we don't listen like we should, but we appreciate you, Coach Gessie.
Love
So
you.
first of all, thank y'all so much for joining the show today. And I think it would be great for us to hear from you, Keisha, about your
Yes,
story, what took place, and how all these
yes.
other incredible women got involved.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yes, I am Lakisha Laurel, or Lakisha Randolph, or Keisha. I am the founder of a support group called Black Fertility Matters. I wanted to start this support group for women who have been on the road and who have been dealing with infertility for as long as I have. I've been dealing with infertility for over 25 years. I've had 2 failed IVF cycles. I'm currently on the show Love and Hip Hop. Atlanta, season 11, about to be season 12, telling my story alongside of my sister, Yandy Smith, who volunteered to donate her eggs to me. So I am the receiver. She is the donor. Yandy Smith is the donor. I am receiving her eggs to conceive have my own child. So we're on our journey to motherhood. I wanted to provide a support group for women who may feel ashamed, guilty, depressed, anxiety, who go through an emotional roller coaster dealing with IVF and infertility. So this is where my sister, alongside with my sister Yandy Smith, introduced me to Coach Gessie, who is our health and wellness coach. I've also detoxed with her many years ago, and Coach Gessie introduced me and Yandy, who to our fertilitist doctor, which is Dr. Daniel Lane. Unfortunately, she had to go, but she is an amazing fertilitist that have been working with me and Yandy on our journey, or my journey to motherhood. So that's a little bit about our story. We wanted to, and Coach Gessie and Dr. Lane wanted to also join the Black Fertility Matter to help educate, support, and provide resources for the Black and Brown community. I just felt like I wanted to continue to tell my story. I didn't know where to start. I reached out to Latoya Bond, Yandy Smith, Coach Gessie, Dr. Lane, and said, listen, I need to tell my story because it's not only going to help me. It was a time where I couldn't even talk this much about my process, what's happening, without me crying. So now for me to be able to stand up here and say I'm providing a support group for myself and other women who are going down this journey, it's amazing. It's amazing. I just thank you guys for telling my story, and having Coach Gessie, Dr. Lane, and Yandy Smith joining the Black Fertility Matters team.
Wow, that's powerful. How long have you been trying to conceive a child?
So I've been literally trying to conceive a child for over 25 years. I've been dealing with fibroids, endometriosis, and then I went to a fertilitist who, my GYN said, okay, you cannot conceive due to age. Once you're over 40, your egg count becomes low. And then because I have fibroids and endometriosis makes my fertility even harder. So I've been dealing with infertility for over 25 years. Mm-hmm. And now I no longer can conceive healthy embryos.
Coach Gessie, our audience, our listeners are no stranger to your story. But I think in the context of what Lakisha has been dealing with, it would be great to be reminded of your story and how you got into this work. And then if you could give us some insight on, what was the process? What was your planning process to support Lakisha?
Yeah, first of all, Lakisha, she just, my heart went out to her when I learned her story, because I battled infertility that was caused by fibroids. I battled fibroids for 14 years and infertility caused by those fibroids for 10 years. And that precipitated what I call my $1 million baby journey, where I had 5 IVF cycles, the in vitro fertilization cycles that Keisha was mentioning. And the first one, I had a miscarriage, 3 failed IVF cycles after that. And even after we did conceive my daughter in the fifth IVF cycle, had major life-threatening situations where they even told me I should consider terminating my pregnancy at 21 weeks. Because in the journey, I was either having fibroid surgery or having IVF procedures because the fibroids kept coming back. And here they were now back, and this literally threatening the life of my baby, where they said that my womb would become a hostile environment at 21 weeks. Now, thank God, my journey, even though my heart stopped on the delivery table, nothing but God that I'm here today. I do have my miracle baby, and when I learned after my journey, my story it went viral after Essence published a profile of it. That's what actually connected me to the fact that this was actually something that millions and millions of women were dealing with all over the world. And telling my story is actually what connected me to Keisha, because Yandy heard me actually on Breakfast Club, and that is when they reached out to me and we started to look at how we could support her. With number one, having just leveling up her overall health. That's number one. Because when I did meet Keisha, she was dealing with advanced fibroid disease, already advanced endometriosis, right? And so for me, that was looking at what, it's always about what we can do, what's in your power to do. And then, even then I was like, my thoughts are how for us to think about parenthood outside of a box. And many times I remember talking to Keisha saying, Keisha, years down the road, you're not going to look at the pregnancy. You're going to be holding the baby. How else might you think about having a baby? And for many years, we tugged back and forth, but she wasn't
For
ready.
many years, I wasn't ready.
She wasn't ready.
My motherhood, I needed my motherhood to look
The
quote
way,
unquote normal. But
yeah.
now I realize that's not normal for me. The
Yeah,
normal.
everybody's journey is different. And I'm so proud of you, not just doing this work for yourself, Keisha, but how you are doing it now to provide support for people literally all over the world who are struggling with it in silence and in silence, right? In isolation and in silence. So once she told me, I remember, right, when you told me, you said you were telling your story, I said, I'm here. Whatever, let's do this. We're going to do this together, because too many of us don't know about the access to support that's available. We don't know about the resources. We don't know about the Black fertility specialists. We don't know about all the things that are available to us and in our power to actually shape our parenthood journeys.
I've known Keisha for a long time. She's always so happy, and you would not know that she was dealing with this journey. So when I'm listening to you, it sounds like you was dealing with levels of trauma, stress, all of these things.
Depression, sadness, shame, not feeling adequate as a woman, that my body cannot produce what it was made to produce, a child. So all of these emotions I've been holding in for a very long time, right? So it's time for me to tell my story, heal my story, and heal other women. So yes, we needed to, and it's very important for us to come on here and talk about IVF and what's happening now with IVF and this vote. Absolutely. Because women like myself, we need IVF. We need in vitro fertilization, because for me, with this whole Alabama Supreme vote saying that a frozen embryo is a child, and whoever destroys this embryos, you're destroying. You're liable for wrongful death. It's murder. I mean, I personally don't believe that an embryo is a child yet, but to each his own. So it just takes away from your own individual beliefs and rights. If I want to have the right to freeze my embryos later, let me have that right. Like, they should not have that right to call for women who are suffering. What do you think?
And it's a slow walk. It's a slow walk to actually taking away IVF for people, right? So there are people who literally, I don't know if you ever heard of a condition called azoospermia, right? I'm going to use this because it's very, very open, clear, just option. So Tamika and Mysonne, have you guys ever heard that first of all, male fertility factor infertility actually has the same impact as female factor issues? Have you ever heard that?
I never really heard of. I mean, you hear about it, but it's not really something that's focused on. Because men, we suffer in silence. Like, men ain't gonna say, "Yo, I can't make a baby," right? You gonna
Right.
always assume it's something else going on. You're not really even assuming that is because of you. So
Right.
Right.
like
And
with
that's
most health
important.
issues,
That's
yeah.
important. And then guess what? Who's the face of infertility? Women, right?
Women's.
So then now let's go back to the fact that if you don't know that your husband or your partner is the problem, now you're not even getting access to the real solutions. So there's an example where a man can, be able to satisfy you sexually with no issues, meaning, comes no issue, right? And do you know there could be no sperm in that ejaculate? It's called azoospermia. Now, a person who has that condition cannot conceive apart from IVF. It's not possible because they have to go into, and many times if there is sperm in the sac, but not coming out through the penis, what's happening now is they have to have a procedure to remove the sperm. That person can never have a
So
child
wait,
outside of
so wait,
IVF.
let me just get this straight. There's no fluid that comes out,
No, fluid
No,
comes
there's
out.
fluid comes out, but
or it's
there's no
fluid that
sperm in the
comes out, but it
fluids.
just it doesn't contain sperm that can produce
That's
babies.
correct. Yes. That is a
Wow.
condition. And that's just one sample, right? One example of a way that that person can never conceive apart from IVF, right? And then there are people who have many other issues. Again, I look at, IVF was a gift to me because there is a dominant kidney disease in my family. Okay. It's called polycystic kidney disease. And 50% of every embryo has this disease. But because we did IVF, we were able to test the embryos beforehand, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Up to 75% of people who have this condition end up on dialysis. And it killed so many people in my family. I was diagnosed with it, but thank God because of detox living, I'm able to be a testimony that, my doctor's like, what? Right? But I didn't want my child to have to deal with it. Well, because of IVF, being able to test the embryo ahead of time, that condition will never be present in my line again. My daughter never has to worry about passing that dominant disease in our family. That is a gift. That is a gift. And you can't do that apart from IVF.
First of all, I don't even understand why someone who doesn't deal with these situations, right? Who can't even fathom the reality that couples and families go through with this situation and with these, diagnoses, would even
Right?
want to have any input that would
Right.
negatively impact someone. I don't even understand that part.
Well, it's
But
control.
I want to ask.
I think it's control. I think it has to do with population control.
A
I,
lot
Absolutely.
of
I
people.
definitely believe that. But I want to ask you, Keisha, are you currently in a relationship?
I am currently in a relationship, yes, as of 5 months. But prior to the
Okay.
5 months, I was not in a relationship.
And was it hard? Like, was that situation? Did this play a factor in your mind in your relationships, or did the fact that you weren't able to conceive cause any kind of rifts in relationships?
Well, prior to me being in a relationship, I felt nervous to get into a relationship because I knew that the male would want to conceive a child. And or with any male I would be with, they would want to have a child with me, right? So, and I knew that that wasn't an option for me. So I was apprehensive of getting into a relationship. But now that I'm in the relationship and he knows what's happening with my body and infertility and IVF, now he wants me to use his sperm, right? But I've already went through the process of going to a sperm donor. But yeah, so it goes both ways. Yeah, he wants me to use his sperm now so that we can conceive, well, at least have his semen or DNA. But I will still have to get an egg donor.
Right. So his sperm would have to go
Into
And
another.
into
to
the eggs that you now have in storage.
yes,
And then the egg would be put inside of you and you would be trying to conceive that way. Right.
100%. That's absolutely what's happening.
So Coach Gessie, talk about this stigma that if you can't conceive, you're doing something wrong. Like it's what you're eating, it's, your past life, who you slept with. I know an old wives' tale used to be when I was young, they would say if you have too much sex when you're young, you're not going to be able to have a baby when you get older. Like the things that we pass down a lot of stories that are told to us to try to like keep us from being promiscuous or whatever. And so therefore people grow up again with the shame that Keisha spoke about, not being able to talk about what's happening because they think they did something wrong to cause this infertility issue on themselves. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's so many things that are passed on generationally wrong because of fear, right? It's driven by fear that, like you said, we don't want our children to have teenage pregnancies. We don't want them to end up what we say, ruining their life, which is, that's neither here nor there. But the biggest issue is that, I think what we have to do is reclaim, number one, our overall priority of our health, because we have to think about our health and our fertility together. I think that there has been so much fear mongering where it's like, oh my God, don't do this because you'll get pregnant. Where women have done so much, put them on birth control at 12 years old, and it has affected their health negatively, okay? And then it has become an obstacle to their fertility down the road, right? Instead of saying, hey, you know what, we want you to be healthy so that one day down the road when you do want to have children, you're going to be fit and healthy in order to do so. So really it's changing the paradigm that's necessary. And there's also such a need to actually make fertility conversations a healthy conversation, right? That actually, that being part of your overall life's plan and planning for it. Because right now there's so many women who they want to focus on, especially in our generation, they want to focus on their career, they want to focus on securing the bag. But guess what? Their fertility is on the, what do you call it? It's on the
Back
shelf.
burner.
It's on the shelf.
Right.
It's on the back burner, right?
Dr. Lane would say what? If you're over, if you're what up until what, 32 years old,
35.
35, 32, 35.
Plus,
Think
yeah.
about having a child then. If not,
Yeah,
freeze your
32,
eggs
start
when you're
freezing
20, freeze them,
Exactly.
start freezing them, and then continue on with your life as far as your careers, your job,
That's right.
traveling, all of that. So
But guess
important
what?
for us.
That whole concept of embryo being a life, which, I'm going to put my dog out there in the hunt. An embryo, how can an embryo be a life? If that's the truth, then every embryo that was implanted would grow. Okay? It doesn't grow automatically. If that was the case, there would be no failed IVF cycles because they would always grow, right? But they don't always grow, right? Because life doesn't happen in the way I see it. Life doesn't grow until it doesn't happen until it actually attaches in the womb and it starts to actually grow. That's my perspective.
I agree with you.
So egg
Yes, go
freezing
ahead. I'm
becomes a
sorry.
problem. Egg freezing becomes a problem if embryos are thought of as, you see what I'm saying? Because now after a certain number of years, like I think at 40 they freeze embryos. They don't even freeze eggs, right? Because they actually need you to fertilize them, get sperm, and fertilize them in order to freeze embryos. So there's the reason this is so important is because it is a slow walk to totally controlling your fertility, right? And fertility specialists can only if they can't freeze the embryos and all of these roadblocks are put up, it's going to start shutting down IVF centers, right? It shuts down IVF centers. So going back to your question, Tamika, I hope I answered it, which was that there's a lot of fear mongering that has been put into our thought patterns and the way we've been raised, and not enough healthy thinking about what it means to actually have healthy fertility, healthy libido, healthy actual reproductive health, period, right? Because there's been this whole idea of trying to control things. But now we realize, no, we need to have a positive view of our overall reproductive health, which includes happy periods. We talked about that before, right? That includes having very, very, a positive perspective about our cycle and not, looking at them as monsters that they're supposed to be that and we're supposed to suffer and in silence and in shame.
Yeah, that was pretty much kind of the gist of what the question I wanted to ask, because there is a lot of fear mongering about, what causes infertility and all those things. I just want to know, what are some of the things that do cause fertility other than, being running in your family? Like, what are some of the things that causes infertility? And what are some of the things that the healthy processes that need to be taken so that women can avoid infertility?
Women
Well,
and
let me.
men.
Sure.
Women and men, exactly. My apologies.
Well, for me, my infertility was caused through fibroids and endometriosis, and then age factored in once I became over 40.
Mhm.
Right. So, and then Coach Gessie would say it's what dieting and
Yeah,
environment
lifestyle.
and
Lifestyle.
food and
Hmm.
lifestyles. And for me,
Absolutely.
honestly, I would even in my mental, I would say even abortions would
Stress.
cause um infertility and stress. Like Coach Jess, you can add on, but those are the things for me that I feel caused my infertility, if you really want to be
Um,
honest.
Reproductive health issues, obviously, such as fibroids, PCOS, that's polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, are factors absolutely of infertility. But we have to go back to what actually are root cause factors of those issues, such as, stress being one of the number one. Okay. Then it is such a thing as actual hormonal imbalance that is
Yes.
drivers of things like fibroids, drivers of things like endometriosis, cysts, etc. Hormonal balance where estrogen is too high in your body and progesterone is too low. And that's affected by everything from the products that we use, right? Shout out to Keisha who's creating non-toxic, nail polish
Nail
lines
polish,
because everything from the makeup
everything.
to the deodorant, to the toothpaste, to the foods that we eat, all affect our hormonal balance, right? And then one that's huge in the Black community is vitamin D
Vitamin D.
deficiency.
Vitamin
Vitamin
D.
D deficiency is a huge factor when it comes to things like fibroids, endometriosis, because the number one hormone that our body uses to fight fibroids is actually the vitamin D hormone. And because our melanin, as people of color, our melanin blocks the absorption of the sun that the body uses to convert and create the D3 hormone. Because it blocks it, we need to be supplementing. That's literally why, we created our prevention kit at the Detox Now because we're like, the top three things that affect people of color are vitamin D deficiency, hormonal balance, and chronic inflammation, right? And the third thing I was going to say was chronic inflammation. So when you look at those things being present, then there are things like age, like Keisha talked about, right? When it comes to women, men, it's not really age because their bodies create sperm all the time for years. That's why men can have babies at 70, 80 years old. But women, our eggs, all the eggs we were ever gonna have, we were born with them. And at 35, we plummet the number of eggs that we lose. Every cycle, we lose eggs, right? And then after age, certain age, we lose even more. But when it comes to the other factor is, it's age, and then when it comes to men, it's things like smoking. There are factors, lifestyle factors. And I
Smoking,
gotta keep
drinking.
going back to the men because the quality of the sperm is connected to miscarriages, it's connected to infertility, all right? And that's everything from smoking, from drinking, to, hot tubs. I posted about this week, to being in hot tubs and jacuzzis where it overheats the sperm,
It's mhm.
to weed is a major attack on quality sperm. These are lifestyle factors. These are things we have the
So,
power to change.
so based upon what you're saying, there are things we're doing wrong. So, to
Yeah, there
go back
are.
to the original
Well, it's
question, it sounds like there's some things that we are doing to cause our infertility issues.
that we didn't know that they were connected to infertility. Yes, absolutely. But they were not. They were not seen as. Wait a minute. These are things that I can actually change in order to improve my fertility.
Mhm.
Right, right. So there are some things that can be genetic,
Mhm.
some things that, could be, like they say, in your family,
Right.
but
Well, guess what's
there
in your family? Lifestyle. Lifestyle is a
lifestyle,
big thing that we pass
diabetes,
on.
and all the things, exactly. And we know fibroids and all of that is certainly something that, based upon our life choices, can happen to
Absolutely.
women from generation to generation, because I certainly know that in my family fibroids has been an issue for a long time. And as I mentioned to you before, when I was younger, I was in the cycle of bacterial vaginosis, yeast infection, bacterial vaginosis, yeast infection, trying to figure out what was going on. I ended up going to a series of doctors, like to Columbia University. I mean, I became a study
Mm.
I stopped having sex completely
Mm-hmm.
because, first of all, it was uncomfortable. And then also just trying to figure out what the issue was. And I went to a doctor who was not in my insurance plan, my own doctor. After all the work that she did, she was frustrated. She didn't know what else to do, especially again within my network. And so she sent me to a woman who I had to pay cash. And I was like, lady, I don't care. It could be whatever. For the rest of my life, I could be paying you.
Just freedom.
You
I need
got to solve
freedom.
for this problem. I want it. And God rest her soul. This doctor met with me, and it took her one day. She took blood work today, and the next day she called me and said, like most of my black women clients, you have zero vitamin D. It wasn't in my system at all.
Zero.
She
That's
put me on
crazy. Do you
vitamin
know? Do you
D.
know how many things you could have been dead from? Cardiovascular. So
I
many issues because of vitamin D.
and she put me on vitamin D. Put me on. Made sure I had some iron in my system as well because I didn't have that as either. And it was 3 days.
Mm,
3 days. I
I believe
began
it.
to feel better.
Hmm.
And then maybe in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I was healed completely. And I never,
Yes.
ever had that problem of those
Again,
recurrent infections again in my life. It was all about vitamin D.
makes sense. But go back to, vitamin D is huge when it comes to your immunity, right? And when it comes to your body's ability to fight off infection.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
There,
Yeah.
is
there,
one of those things.
and there
Every
you
black
have it.
You
person
could
should
have had a
be
cold
taking
and been sick,
D3.
and
Every
they could
black
have took
person
you
should be
out.
taking D3. Every single black and brown person should be taking D3.
D3, okay.
Yeah,
I take
and you're and,
D3 every
and
day.
ask your doctor for what high normal your level should be. Don't let them tell you it's normal and it's low normal. Because as black and brown people, our bodies need more in order to overcome everything we're fighting. Just from the chronic
I,
inflammation as the impact of racism we deal with every day.
I want to let you go, Coach Gessie, and also you, Keisha. Thank y'all so much for your patience with us today, for being with us, and for being committed to getting this information out to our listeners and everyone who needs to hear both Keisha's story and the way in which you, as a health and wellness expert, continue to focus on Black women, Coach Gessie. Um, I want people to know how they can find you, how they can get involved with your work. But I wanted to just leave with this point about my medical diagnosis during that time. And this has now been, I'm 44, so this has been about 20 years ago. I was about
Wow.
25 years old. What scares me is that I went to Columbia University, a doctor at Columbia, my own doctor, sought after. This doctor, people were lined up. You couldn't even get an appointment with her because she was actually a very good doctor. GYN. I went to all these places, other doctors, looking online, calling auntie them, trying to figure it out. And no one had the information about a simple thing like vitamin D.
Mm,
That's scary to me that I went to
scary.
the top, the most prestigious places, all the way down to calling TT and them in the hood, like, yo, you ever had this issue? Like, what's good? And everybody was telling me about Monistat.
No. Oh my God.
Monistat was making me feel like I needed a fire hose on me.
Fire
It was
hose.
terrible. That did not help me at all. My issue was not coming from, like you said, from having, sex or whatever. My issue was coming from inside, and
The
nobody knew
vitamin
what to tell
deficiency.
me. So it's very scary. And
Yeah.
I hope that now, because of course we weren't in this big internet age, and, things were a lot different. But I hope that now we're in a situation where Black families, mother and father, who have daughters and sons, are not treating our health,
Hmm.
our reproductive health, as if it is a taboo conversation,
Yes.
No.
where we
Yes.
can actually say the things that need to be said to teach our kids about, our boys about cleaning their penises
Yeah.
properly, our girls about their health as well, because is what, in my judgment, has been so much of an issue. You can't bring it up. I don't remember, you just can't bring it up. It just, grandma is not
It
coming
was
to talk to you
taboo.
about your vajayjay.
Yeah.
It was very
It's a
taboo.
different day. but it's a different day. You know, when my daughter had her cycle, we called all the family members on FaceTime one by one and said, "Hey, she got her period." Because I was changing the paradigm. I said, we're going to celebrate it as something that is a rite of passage, that this is now a new season in her life, and we're going to celebrate it so that she doesn't ever feel ashamed about it.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Keisha.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, guys, for listening to our story, telling a story, fighting against IVF and these Republicans who are going against IVF and what they believe in. They should not have the right to women's uh, bodies, what
Bodily
we need,
autonomy.
our medications. Please continue to get the word out and continue to talk about IVF and infertility. If you guys, for your guests, Black Fertility Matters team every Thursday on my IG Live. That's at Lakisha Laurel. Every 8 p.m. we have a live discussion on infertility in the Black and Brown community. We're trying to spread the word and give resources and educate our community on what's out there, what's available, different votes that are going against IVF, different doctors that are here to educate and help us. Please, you can reach me at Black Fertility Matters, www.blackfertilitymatters.com, or on IG, it's IG Black Fertility Matters. Also at Lakisha Laurel on IG. Coach Gessie, you can
Hi.
tell them where to find you.
Yes. So first of all, we have to continue to spread the word, and we have to advocate for and contact our legislators. So if I am Coach Gessie on Instagram, and if you comment Save IVF on any of my posts, you will receive a DM with the information on how to contact your legislators, what you can do, what's in your power, and then also if you're looking for support on your fertility journey, how we can help you to control that. As well, we invite you to take our free quiz at thedetoxnow.com. And so you can learn, what you can do within your power to take control of your health and to level up what we know is our very first wealth, which is our health.
Well, we want to thank you, Coach Gessie, for always being a friend to the room, and and always bringing that information and informing us about things that we don't know about. Because I'm very much informed now, and I just want to salute you, Keisha, for knowing you for years and you being in the background and just always having this spirit, and now using your passion and using your experience to be an advocate and be on the front line.
That's right.
Is beautiful, and I commend you
I
because I
appreciate
know
that. Y'all
it
gonna make
wasn't
me
easy.
cry.
So proud.
No, you almost made me cry because I'm looking at you and I'm like, Keisha is really taking
You
her
don't
position.
even know what's in my
and
heart.
she's fighting.
The pain of not being able to have a child, but to still have this face of everything's okay it takes a toll on you, and it takes a toll on your heart. So this is a process for women.
Control of
We gotta.
you taking control of your life. You taking control of your narrative, and you are a face for so many women who are sitting there and they're going through what you once went through. So your bravery and your ability to come forward is going to really change this world and the narrative around what this looks like. So
Yeah, and
we
you know what,
appreciate
Keisha, you will birth more than just your own. You will birth your
Right.
own, and you will birth an
That's right.
entire generation with the work
That's
that you're
right.
doing. So thank you
I
so much.
appreciate that.
God
Thank you.
bless y'all. We love y'all so much. And
so
thank you,
much.
thank you, thank you, and thank you
Thank
again.
you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Bye
Thank you so
bye.
very much.
Thank you.
Well, listen, there's a lot to learn about that topic. First of all, like you said, Keisha, she's so amazing. I think the thing about Keisha is that for her, for a long time, especially since Yandy has been a celebrity, she's been a support system and a backbone, absolutely, for the kids, for the family, for the businesses, for everything that Yandy has built. And I think that in and of itself is kind of like, it's a lot of pressure when you're trying to help keep a family going, because I don't know any celebrity that would say that they're in the position that they're in without the support of like a lot of people and a lot that goes into keeping them going. Yandy, has a family and businesses, several businesses, and she's on TV. Takes her mother, her father, her sister, and Keisha, and others to be a part of that, and of course, her husband. And so, I know what it is and understand from her perspective what it is to be a backbone to play that role. And then now having to come forward or deciding to come forward with something that has been impacting her as well. And for Yandy to step up and immediately say, I'm willing to support, I'm going to give you my eggs. That to me is big because now it's reciprocal. It's like something that I needed. You're there for me as well. So I think it's a beautiful story.
It is such a beautiful story, man. Just knowing Keisha and knowing what she does behind the scenes and how important she is to Yandy and just the machine that she has there. And to see her utilize her own personal experiences and her pain actually and change it into purpose. The way she is now is actually motivational. And it brings me to I don't get it. Everyone should have autonomy over their own person. Like, I just don't get why there are people who actually want to pass laws that would affect someone like Lakisha. Right? From being able to have a baby, from being able to, have a family, to make the decision about the bodies and the eggs that they have. Like, these things are very strange to me. Like, I think if you don't want to abort your children, if you don't want to freeze your eggs, and you don't want to freeze your embryos, you don't want to do those things, I think you have every right not to do those things. I just don't understand why we need legislation that prohibits someone who might need to do these things to do it. And it really mind boggles me when you hear people talk like they should have the right to tell you what to do with your body. Like, it's very strange to me, and it's very weird that we have so many people who have that mentality, right? And a lot of them are in positions of power and in government, right? The fact that we actually have to have this conversation, that we have to fight for IVF. Like, what do you mean? This is your personal body, right? That's like actually telling someone who you can have sex with, right? Look, all of these things, because that's what it comes down to. At a certain point, they'll be able to tell you when and how you conceive a child, right? Who you conceive a child with, what time you need to be, like, all these things is just basically taking your own human autonomy from you, your own human rights from you. So it's very strange, man. I wish we get to a point in life where people start respecting people's personal space, people's personal opinions, people's personal choices. I would never be able to have a child, right? I would never know what that feeling is
To carry a child.
to literally carry and actually give birth, physical birth to a child. I don't know what that situation is. I don't know all those things that come with that. So I don't think there should ever be a time when I should be able to have a voice that could impact that for a woman, And so it's just very strange to me,
Well, I think that, first of all things lead to politics, everything. And the bottom line is that there is a segment of the population, which is ultimately, this is like Handmaid's Tale. If you haven't seen Handmaid's Tale, you should probably check it out, because really it's playing out. Because there's a segment of the population, which is basically white men, older white men, who are concerned about the declining numbers of their race. That is what this is about. That the Latino population is fastest growing, that at some point this country will be more brown than white. And of course, we as Black people, they always been trying to stop us or find ways to cap our childbirth, the growth of our communities and the dominance of our communities. And therefore, and on top of all the things that you see, right, they're passing these laws to try to impact women's rights to choose, the autonomy for our bodies. They're doing all of that, but they also are going into their churches, going into their places of worship, their organizations, and everywhere else, spreading a message of have more children to white women, right? They want white women to have more children. They are trying, if you ever go out and just people watch, you will see white women who have a baby walking, a baby in the stroller, and they're pregnant. And that is not just something that's happening it's not by happenstance. It is literally becoming baked into their cultural existence, that they're past. The message is, we are declining, our race is declining, especially as there's more integration of Black people, white people, and others, the melting pot of people having children, getting married. Their race is declining, and therefore they are attempting to find ways to, one, limit our ability to have children, to slow down the browning of America. Said that already. The other part of it, though, is that they are trying to stop their women from having abortions. Because white women, like every other woman, are very concerned about our careers, concerned about our finances, economics. We don't have the type of money, most people, that it takes to have multiple children. And so they're, so white people are facing the same thing. And they're saying, hey, listen, it's not the time for me to have a child. I'm going to law school. I'm climbing the corporate ladder. I'm doing, all these different things. And I'm not ready to have a child. And so with that being said, this is intentional. It's not happening because people just woke up one day and their beliefs are so strong. No, it's intentional. And it's coming all the way down from different perspectives. They changed the courts. They have gutted Roe v. Wade. They have passed other legislation that makes it more difficult. I think it's the Dobbs decision. They have put things in place to, from a layered perspective, prevent this country from changing to be more diverse. So that is what we see happening. And for people who were sitting around toying with the idea of electing Donald Trump to presidency or staying home, what you are ultimately saying, and let me just tell you this. I have been, as you know, we travel the country. I talk to Black men all the time. I'll stop a Black man in the corner store and get into conversations. And one of the things that I keep hearing, I see it online and I hear it, and I deeply hear it, that Black men are frustrated with this narrative that they hate Black women and that there is so much of a divide, a division between us. And in fact, there are a lot of Black people, you are one of them, a Black man, who are very intentional about challenging that narrative and trying to figure out, where is that coming from? Is it social media drama? Is it real? Is it happening in your households? Like, where exactly did this narrative that we are so divided come from, and why does it continue to spread? Let me say this. If it is not a part of your political process, thought process, your political ideology, your political moves, to consider my bodily autonomy, my right to choose, my right to be able to get medicines like IVF drugs, birth control, and the things that I need to be healthy and also to be able to produce. If you make a decision in this election and elections to forth that does not consider me as well and what we as women are experiencing, then who is helping to create the divide? Because that is something that we will be watching. I talked to so many of them and I asked, what's your main concern? The man said economics, period. He said that he doesn't care about policing. He doesn't care about women's choice. He doesn't care about any of that. And I asked him, as a Black woman, when I hear you say that you don't care, one, about criminal justice and policing, that scares me, because now what I'm hearing you say is that it's okay for them to blow up our children, shoot them, put their knees in their necks, do all the things that they're doing. He didn't say that's a second or third issue. He said it's not an issue for him at all. All he cares about is making money. which I still have not figured out where in the Republican platform you'll see the line items of how you're going to make more money. I don't see that, but maybe other people do. And then I said, so now you don't care about that. That hurts me. That scares me because our young black boys and girls need the protection of a system that at least we can challenge it. At least there is a process, okay? Because Donald Trump is talking about, he wants these people to be, have immunity. They should be able to kill us and not be challenged. There should be no system for holding law enforcement accountable from his perspective.
And him either.
So that's one. But then we get down to something deeply personal, and that's how I was made, how you were made. My body needs protection. As a woman, I have the sanctity of our community. Without me, we cannot continue to grow. So we die if we can't take care of our health, or if we can't say, I'm not going to have 3 babies when I'm young. Because guess what? I don't hear these same men saying they're going to stop having sex if I can't get birth control pills to control the amount of times that I get pregnant. So some of this stuff that we're talking about, I get it. There's a frustration, but we're just throwing spaghetti at the wall or trying to be ornery for the sake of it, pissed off with elected officials, to hell with Biden. There's all of these different things that we're feeling, and yet we're looking at a threat that's in front of us that is extremely dangerous, and I've not heard anybody give me clarity on what you gonna do when I can't get birth control pills, can't get IVF treatments, can't go to certain medical facilities, and they talking about making it murder if I freeze my eggs. Not just saying they thinking about it. They're passing laws in states right now to make that happen.
Well, with that said, I mean, there's not much you can argue with that, man. I think we as men have to understand that there is a real threat to women's existence, right? And
to our existence.
I mean, but when you talk specifically about the IVF and the abortion and reproductive rights, there's a specific directly intention to stop women from reproducing, and like you said, ultimately it's our existence as well.
It's our existence because you can't have a man or a woman without a woman.
So if we're not intentional, if that's not on our top priorities, then we can't ask why they saying this divide. So with that said, I get it, but I don't get why people think it makes sense for us to even have any say in it. So, at the end of the day, you know where I stand. I'm always going to stand with women. I'm always going to stand for women.
Sometimes.
Anyway, that brings us to the end of our show. We appreciate y'all. Shout out to Coach Gessie. Shout out to Lakisha, for sharing her testimony, and Coach Gessie for also educating us as she always does. Make sure you follow us at TMI_show on Instagram. DM us. Let us know how you feel about the show. Give us some topics, people you want to see. Tell us you love us. Tell us you hate us. We know you love us. And keep us the #1 show in the world. TMI is the #1 show in the world.
Lord, help
we
us.
appreciate you and we love you. I'm not going to always be right. Tamika D. Mallory's not going to always be wrong, but we will both always, and I mean always, be authentic.
Peace.
That's how we own it. That's how we own it. That's how we own it. Oh! That's how we own it.
Check out the video version of TMI
every single Wednesday on iWoman.tv.
That's how we own it.